Start the stream. This should start the stream. Eventually. Open chat in new window. Very bueno. It's saying that the stream quality is okay. Eventually. It's better than that. Oh, and I'm streaming onto myself. I streamed all over myself. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Hello and welcome to Fast Food Thursday number 7, the new Fast Food Thursday for the $20 plus patrons. The patrons that pay at least $20 or more. I am here with Cody. The others haven't shown up yet. I hope they got the messages in Patreon. And yeah, basically it's today is a very warm day, and by warm I mean hot. It's disgusting. Though where I live is probably a bit cooler than where Cody lives.
We're actually having a pretty decent day. I don't think it got up past like 91, but it's not like I've been outside today.
I don't even know what 91 is. Well, yeah, this is, well, you had to... Do you not know improv? It's always yes and, not the facts. This is, we've actually have quite a few more $20 plus patrons compared to last month, so I'm actually hoping that maybe someone else shows up. It's really difficult, I have found, to think properly with the heat. It's Dr. What? Is that the... Because this is not the real Dr. Lehman. Is that the actual Dr. Lehman?
No, it's Dr. Hospitaler, not Dr. Lehman. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
No, I don't mean you. I mean the guy in the chat.
Sorry.
Who are you? Person who gives me $20 a month?
Oh, I'm just some guy on the internet.
He dabs on me. I dab on you, layman. Debate me. I will dab all day. Sociology is not the best science that there is. So I will debate you. Yeah, we have Dr. Hospitaler. Welcome to the stream, to the money stream for people who give me money.
Hey, glad to be here.
Well,
Oh
I'm
my
glad
God.
you're here. This is your.
I'm dabbing right now, just so you know. You can't see me, but
I can feel the dabs, man. They're strong dabs. The dab vibrations are coming over.
By the way, 91 degrees Fahrenheit is around 32 degrees Celsius.
That's actually all right, isn't it? Yes, I done did it now, layman. I said the truth. What are you gonna do about it? Sociology doo-doo. The only social science worse than sociology is feminism. That's double doo-doo. So, don't come at me, boy. Now, you guys are right with having Dr. Lehman on if he wants to come on.
yeah.
I mean, this is your stream.
That's
I
my
don't
stream.
have
I
a
paid
problem
for
with it.
I mean, Lehman,
I'm
if you want
paid.
to come on, you can come on. We can settle this once and for all.
What are you guys arguing about?
That sociology is not the best social science.
Uh,
Yeah, that is fucking Kronbacher. But it's only because it's extra bitter, and I will do like an English staple drink that in northern Germany they call Ulster. But this is you put fucking Sprite in there, and then it's called a shandy. It's like a elite thing that English people who drink in the summer. Usually I'm not a big fan of pilsners, so you know. Well then, this is the best anime, Layman. No, Layman isn't coming on stream. He is enjoying watching anime. Anime is super gay. I don't care if you're.
well, what a
GF
fucking
stat.
weeb.
Yeah.
Animu.
Yeah. Outstavas is pretty dope, dude. I mean, it's, you know, it's good when you'd make it with like really, really bitter beer because like the bitter shandy is better than the. If I don't know if you make it with like a beer that doesn't have a very hoppy, like if you do it with a beer that's too malty, it can become too sweet and too heavy. I like it when it's real bitter, then it's especially refreshing. But then again, that's just my personal taste. You truly are a Kartoffeldeutscher. I am. Look, if it was still that time, I would be an Aryan. I would be considered an Aryan. I could have the Arya-Nachweis, which. Do you guys know what that is? Like this really interesting piece of German history?
What you mean the Holocaust?
No. I mean, the Aryan, the actual definition of Aryan was not that you were that you had to be blonde and blue-eyed.
I've heard that. I've heard Aryan used around in like different steppe nomadic tribes and certain. Like I know there was Aryan Christianity around the late Roman Empire, and I'm not entirely certain what Aryanism really is.
I mean, it's a Persian word that I think means purity. That's why Jontron's second name is actually Aryan. It's John Aryan Safari. Jafari, not Safari. I'm sorry, John, if you're watching. Asavasa deserves a sticker. This machine kills thirst. Yeah, it does.
That's an oof.
You can down that shit, and you know, in the rest of the world, it's called shandy. Yeah, no, Aryan is supposed to mean pure, and you could during Nazi times. I think you had to prove for 6 generations that your family was completely German or Nordic, and you would be considered an Aryan and be allowed to join the SS. And I could prove that. Probably couldn't, but it's... My grandfather did a lot of ancestry research, and I do have some ancestors that are like from Eastern Prussia, but they're the German kind from Eastern Prussia, the German kind of Poles, because they moved there.
Do Prussians in some cases not count?
No, but like the East Prussian area, there are also Slavic peoples living there.
Right, yeah.
But the like...
And the Slavs are fucking unpure, filthy, I don't know, Easterners or whatever.
Or so the theory goes, yes.
Fucking Slavs and their vodka.
Oof. Fucking Slavs and their Adidas. What was I saying? Yeah, and basically my family moved from northern Germany to there, like my great-great-grandfather. And my great-grandfather was actually one of those guys in Poland who snuck up behind Nazi patrols and slit their throats, so that's pretty cool.
Nice.
But apparently my other great-grandfather was a Nazi judge, and I know that one of my great-grandfathers died on his way to Stalingrad by stepping onto a landmine. So... the Erbschuld is not completely redeemed.
There's still bad blood there, I guess. I know I have some German ancestry. My family came from my great-great-grandmother's family came from Germany in the 1800s, settled in Canada.
Oh, I actually do also have family in Canada. Some
really?
People moved there. I actually met them some time ago. They live in Vancouver, which is pretty cool.
Oh my god. Fucking Vancouver.
You Canadian?
Yes, I'm from Ontario.
Oh, which one is that? Is that the...
It's the lefty. It's actually no, it's conservative run now. The Liberals have been kicked out, but it's the one with all the SJWs in Toronto.
Oh, so it's the Toronto, Ontario. Yeah, that makes sense. So like the
I live in
from Toronto.
Yes, I live in southern Ontario, which is essentially just all Toronto.
It's really impressive that you have this enormous country, and you have
like 90% of it is just nothing. It's just like fucking forests and bears and shit.
Yeah, and
You don't do anything with it.
This one corner where there's a huge amount of people, which is basically close to where all the other people live in the United States.
Yeah, it's got a lot to do with like trade and shit, I think.
Like the Great Lakes region is really the North Coast, isn't it?
Yeah. It's yeah, like all the major settlements are along the coast or close to the US. Like the center of Canada is just like rednecks and trees and oil.
But it's rednecks who apologize.
At least
No,
it's not
no, they
Quebec.
don't apologize. The rednecks don't apologize.
Sorry for shooting ya. That was my attempt at mixing redneck with Canadian. Please
That's-
end me.
Yes, that's terrible. If you ever want to know what a Canadian redneck is, just watch Trailer Park Boys. That's essentially what it is.
Isn't that an American show, though?
No, it's Canadian.
Oh.
Yeah.
That changes everything.
That explains a lot.
You guys didn't know that? You didn't
No,
know
I did
Trailer
not
Park
know
Boys
that.
is Canadian?
I had no idea. I was
You
always
have,
under the impression that because there's no people who live in trailers in Canada. Canada is a
No.
utopia, and there's no problems
Dude, like
there.
90% of the people in Canada live in trailers. I don't know if you know this. Like, we have so much white trash in Canada. You just don't hear about it because they don't have the internet.
Trailer does not equal white trash.
Uh,
Now we're talking. The debate is getting started.
oh god.
Though to be fair, the North Coast is going to change because if climate change continues to go as it goes, you should really invest in real estate that's
Yeah,
along the
like
Bering
the-
Strait. Because holy shit, that's
the
gonna
whole
become-
Arctic Ocean will just be opened up for trade. You can just trade with Russia super easily.
yeah, and there's going to be big old settlements up there, so the
Maybe
land
there'll
that
even
you
be
buy is
trade
going to be
wars
very
with
valuable.
China.
Pardon?
Because I know China has claimed that they own a part of the Antarctic through some bullshit means.
Yeah, it's probably
They're already
continental.
they're already
bullshit.
investing in that.
Yeah. I mean, China already owns half of fucking Africa, so.
But they're not colonialists, Berger. They are anti-colonialists.
Ah, yes.
China is the most anti-colonialist country on earth, you know, opposed to us filthy Westerners.
Yeah, China, so moral, so pure.
They are the
communism
master.
works, everyone.
Hey, it did in China, sort of, kinda.
To be fair, though, China is the fucking enemy, and China needs to be destroyed by Chinese people. And
Yeah.
then they need to become democratic and then become glorious China, but, like, split up.
That would be nice. I don't know if that's gonna happen. At least not anytime soon.
Then they should make a Chinese union, but that's democratic. Like they either get they either make the government democratic, which or they just
Yeah.
destroy the government and then make their own governments, and you know.
I don't know how China could. I don't think it's even possible for China to become democratic without some kind of revolution.
Oh, there
because
has to be a
it's just-
revolution.
Yeah,
100%. Like that's not even a question.
And I don't even know how feasible that actually is, because their government just controls like.
Everything.
Is it even like I don't know that much about the Chinese military compared to the U.S. Like I know in the U.S. it would be pretty much impossible to rebel against the government like in terms of a traditional war, but I don't know how feasible that would be in China. I imagine not very.
And the Chinese military is not as modern as the United States military, but it's larger because
Yeah.
they just have so many fucking people.
Yeah. I imagine maybe something like that might happen. Like maybe like 150 years in the future, you could. I don't think it'll be even within our lifetimes. Like all civilizations, it will collapse eventually. But you know, that's I don't know.
Well, you know, if China collapses, less of a problem than if the US collapses. Hello, Salty, my dude. How are you doing? Welcome to the stream.
Hello. It's me. Sorry.
You're a bit quiet. I'm gonna turn you up, my dude.
Am I? I don't know if I just spoke quietly or.
No, I just turned you up to 200. That's the maximum that I can
Excellent.
do.
Turn me up to 11, baby. Where's no? My input volume's maxed, so that is as good as I can get on my end.
Ah, it should be alright though, it should be fine. No, like the situation in China, I actually don't know how they would orchestrate a revolution because now with the whole social credit thing that's been introduced in so many regions,
They're
mean,
basically getting the people to undo the revolution for them, which is kind of terrifying. Yeah.
I mean, they have a lot of fairly liberal, like Hong Kong is a very liberal region, but it's technically speaking also a different country. Like they have,
Technically,
yeah, I mean they have like a different. They're like a vassal state of China, really.
yeah.
What is going on with Taiwan right now? Like, and I'm aware the geopolitical situation is interesting to say the least.
I mean, Taiwan is the legitimate government of China. Oh no, the Chinese are coming through my windows and oh god. Yeah, no, actually that is basically they're the democratic version of China that was displaced from China. The thing about Taiwan, and I don't know if this is true, but my dad told me this, is that the Chinese shoot missiles at Taiwan once a year.
Really?
The missiles fly over Taiwan and land in the ocean on the other side of Taiwan, just to show them that if they wanted to, they could.
Hey, it's all right because China's I don't know, they own it or something. Some dumb. Yeah, Taiwan. It's not a. It's not a real country. It's just a little island off the coast. It's practically a part of China.
They're in this
pretty much
weird
their own
pseudo
property.
state where, like, the main Chinese government doesn't want Taiwan to have a say, but at the same time insists that they are part of China.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the whole thing is a very complicated situation.
Taiwan's kind of like, what if China didn't become a shitty communist country and they didn't like destroy like almost all of their religious temples? What if they maybe weren't like world conquering?
I realize this is a gaping flaw in my own knowledge. I remember there being, like, is this part of, what was it called? It had a name, like a great cultural. Was it the Great Step Forward or something like that? Is
the Great Leap Forward, yeah.
And in this event, much of China's cultural history was leveled
Yeah, pretty
to
much.
try and make way for a communist.
And a lot of people
ideology.
died too.
Okay. Yeah,
It's the Great Leap Forward.
They should have let the Japanese kill them.
Yeah, I'd rather have the Japanese up there as the fucking superpower, let's be honest.
I mean, I don't know, because Imperial Japan was a very different place.
Current Japan,
Yeah.
I would prefer. Not Imperial Japan, Jesus. That's just
Imperial
too bad.
Japan was almost as bad.
That wouldn't have even been like Japan was just. There was no way Japan could have kept all its territory or even
Well, I mean,
like won against the U.S. Like it wasn't even an equal playing field. Like America's military was just.
it was going okay until Midway.
I mean,
Midway?
Japan has got some very interesting geographic advantages, but also disadvantages. Like, it's all on the coast. That's really bad, because all of Japan is very narrow, and also, basically, it goes straight, and then it just goes up like this, and you have very narrow
I'm
spaces
informed
to
a lot of
Hold on, guys.
the major
I
Chinese
gotta.
infrastructure is like that, though, right? Where it's along the coastal region.
Pardon?
I'm gonna leave. I need to get my pizza. Hold on a sec.
Do that.
Well, at least I was informed. I might be wrong, that a lot of the major cities and things are along the coastal regions of China. Either if they're not on the coast, they're not very far away.
Yeah, but China can also do agriculture further inland.
Yeah, but
Japan
it
can't
tends to
really
be
do
more
that.
rural. Japan doesn't have that option, yeah, but
Yeah.
That's why they wanted mainland China.
And you know what? They should have gotten it. I'd rather have the current Japanese, though. Of course, if it hadn't worked out the way it did, probably the current Japanese wouldn't be the same Japanese, and they would be just as bad as China. Like, China is the main reason why I'm not very interested in the United States of America breaking down. Because I mean, usually I just think, oh, this probably it would probably be funny if the United States just collapsed, because that would be their own fault and their own problem. But then I think they are, at the end of the day, the paragons of freedom in the world, for better or worse. And if the United States collapsed, China would gain a dominating global position, and that would be a problem, because I will have Donald Trump every election over any Chinese politician.
In terms of which one you'd prefer, would you prefer the South Koreans or the Japanese to be the ones that, like, if we have to hand power over the Asian region to one of them?
Well,
Current Japanese.
but then again, the Japanese have anime, so Koreans, so that anime doesn't spread further. We need to contain that shit.
Yeah, but Korea has K-pop, so I mean, what's really the difference?
That's actually true. But Japan has also J-pop.
Yeah, but their girls are cuter.
Is there really
Japanese
that
or
much of a
Korean
difference?
I'm
There
sure
actually is.
somebody who was Asian could show you the difference, but
I can see that. I see the
I imagine
difference, but I don't
out
think
from the
that-
outside looking in, it's very difficult to tell the difference between one white person and another. But as a white person, it's kind of easy to tell the difference between maybe not Americans and Western Europeans, but there's certain phenotypes that are more common in Eastern Europeans.
You can definitely
We definitely can tell.
You can differentiate between Europeans and Americans, and that Europeans aren't fat. And I mean, of course, it's you can see. I can tell you if a person is Korean or Japanese, but I just don't think that you can say definitively that Japanese girls are cuter.
I mean, that's one hell of a study.
Yeah.
On a rating of 1 to 10, 10,000 men said. Do you include the opinions of men, or do you include the opinions of bisexual and lesbian women in the
course.
cuteness scale?
Bisexual and lesbian women are very important in this whole thing. Though, to be honest, many of them, only butch lesbians get to have a voice, because they can actually decide how cute people are.
You know what I mean? Like, I wonder if there are major differences in what heterosexual and bisexual men find attractive as physical attributes in the opposite sex than what women that are bisexual and lesbian find it attractive in women, right?
You know, I actually think that it's probably more to do with whether you're like a dominant person or more like a passive person. Because we have with the interesting dynamic with gay relationships, generally homosexual relationships, is that traditionally speaking, in most heterosexual relationships, you will have a dominant man and a submissive female, but that's very traditional. I mean, you have this in many different configurations. But like statistically speaking, that is the most common one.
That is vanilla, yeah.
Yeah, that's like the vanilla version. The interesting, like with gays and lesbians, the dynamic becomes interesting because you have an equal likelihood of them being dominant or submissive. You have like women tend to be more submissive, men tend to be more dominant, and that's how it sort of works out. But if you have two persons of the same gender who get into a relationship, there's not a perfect parity. And you combine this with the problem that gay people more than bisexual people have anyway, that there's not that many gay people out there.
It's like 3%.
Actually, I think it's 13. So it's a lot.
See, I'm thinking of transgender. Yeah, no,
7
it's
or
higher.
13. I don't know. I know. I'm
At least global
There's a very
figures.
small number of yeah.
So it's not easy being gay. That's one of the reasons why I kind of am cool with not being gay. I wish I
Yeah.
was bisexual. That but
There are
everybody
challenges with any of these configurations, to be fair.
is. Koreans are a bit taller. What is going on here?
Can't help but notice that Burger has 48 unread private messages.
Yeah, I was looking at
Oh,
that
is
too.
that the amount of unread private messages that I have?
Yeah, those are like friends talking to you rather than in servers.
Oh, how did I get 48 unread private messages? I just thought that was the amount of friends that I had that were online. I always
No,
read my PMs.
That's incoming messages. Yeah, I can understand like all the servers, not because I have mine mostly muted, but like your PMs are like what?
I mean, I always check my PMs. Where do all these come from?
I know Discord likes to bug out sometimes.
No,
I think
listen,
you
my
can mark all
girlfriend
as
just
read.
sent me a message, and now it's not more. Not that it just showed out. It just showed up on top, and it didn't add a new message.
Dunno, man. I can't see the bit which would suggest that Discord needs an update
Oof.
because your
fuck.
face is currently covering it. So
I don't have beer here. Oh yeah, that's true. I'll move this over real. No, actually, it's on the other side. No, Discord doesn't need an update. I'm gonna go get another beer real quick.
be a man. Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced I should be allowed to be in here. I apologize, chat. He turned me up to 200%. I can't do anything about that.
You sound perfectly fine here, but I'm not listening to the stream online.
Yeah, I'm not here. Like I said, Burger turned me up to 200%.
Very good. The problem, I'd only have 2 beers that I bought, and I'm not even half an hour into the stream, so.
Yeah, it seems like me included. There's a few people in here that aren't in the $20 donation.
No, they can be in the. They can be in the people who aren't $20 plus. Can be in the chat room in the studio, but they can't be in the stream.
I don't know if I should be. Like, I think I signed up on Maker Support a while ago, so it might just be that we're still waiting for Maker Support to fix itself. But
I mean, if you're $20 on Maker Support, that's cool. I'm cool with you being here. That's absolutely no problem. I mean, that's not your fault that Maker Support doesn't work.
I think I'm only 10. I haven't checked in a while. Maybe I'm not meant to be here.
Oof. Wouldn't that be awkward?
It would. That would mean that the rolls got hacked up, though. Although maybe
no, because here's the best thing about this: you get Grand Patron when you have $10, but you get to be in the stream when you have $20. So people who are in the stream get $20. Oh, dude! Fuck! I don't have Streamlabs activated for. I'm not using OBS Studio. Oh Jesus! Because OBS Studio is crashing all the time right now. I tried I'm using the OBS Streamlabs. Oh fuck! How do I do this? Oh my god! Because of course you do want to be on the thing. Oh fuck! I have to open Stream. This is Firefox is something that can be opened, right? Because then I'll open Firefox and get in Streamlabs there.
Yeah, you should be able to open the alerts or the recent messages for Streamlabs on your browser.
Yeah.
And just Jake, I'm sick, so I sound completely, not completely different, but a little bit different.
Well, with Twitch and okay, you can't actually see my passwords. But I have to. Fuck me. I have to use Dashlane for this shit. Luckily, I'm not having a screen cap on. I just have a. So.
I just got window capture and then
Yeah, I just have a window capture. So Neolutionist, hold up right now. Don't do anything yet. I mean, I won't be able to. Security alert for Reddit. Data breach for Reddit from June 2018 has been reported. Okay, I'll have to do that later. Twitch. Copy password. I'm not sponsored by Dashlane, but Dashlane is very good. Who's posting the English Pepe memes in chat? What's going on?
When do they not post English Pepe memes?
That's actually true. Now I have to use two-factor auth. You can receive your verification token with the Authy mobile app. Yes, I already have. Authy, tap to get your Twitch thing. Why does all of this have to be so complicated? I mean, probably to there we go. This was very stressful. Yeah. And now I will if I turn on Firefox, right? And I pull this up. Yeah, this will be visible. Okay. Oh, the Neolutionist donated $2. This is the test. The test has gone through, the Neolutionist. It works, but I'm really sorry that this isn't sort of working properly like I tried it to. But you know what? You can, if you want to, come in chat. Those are friend requests. Streamlabs and 2... I mean, okay. This is. I've been warned that this would happen, my dudes. People watching in the chat, and it's happening now. This is a big day for all of us.
What happened? What did I miss?
Nothing has happened yet, but I think something's gonna happen soon.
Burger is having technical difficulties.
Yeah, I'm having technical difficulties. Chat, ask questions, please.
So far, I've only
YouTube
seen
chat
dumb questions.
or Discord chat.
You know, also chat. I am watching YouTube chat, so. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Is that beer in a plastic bottle?
No. That's cider in a plastic bottle, in it.
Okay.
In it.
What's with the Sonic memes? Can we please go back to Bionicle memes? Have you read Machiavelli? What by Machiavelli? Because I have read most of The Prince. Even though it's quite short, I don't even know why I stopped reading The Prince. But something came up. What's your opinion on Baron Cohen's Who is America? Oh my god, I love it. Love it. Honestly, it is one of the best television shows of the past few years. And I say this unironically. I absolutely love Who is America. Have you guys watched it?
I don't really like him.
I'm one of those dirty people who is both a burger fan and entirely a weeb. So,
A weeb?
yeah, I just watch anime. I don't really watch Western media.
Oh,
It just kept
shit.
me sane.
Oh, holy shit. Okay. I will now move the Firefox up. Thank you, the Neolutionist, for a massive $217. Holy shit.
The burger can actually buy nice beer now.
Well, I will save this money for dark times, but that's holy that's so much. This is the biggest donation I've ever received.
It's all those,
Probably gonna stay the biggest for a long time. I certainly hope that it stays the biggest for a long
that's
time.
like $2,000 of millennial money.
That's true. Holy shit, thank you so much. If you do want to come on the stream, basically you have an open invitation now. That took fucking forever. I was going to match dollar for dollar on Patreon, but I forgot you had a make support, so I threw that in there too. Oh god. Yeah, that explains everything. Wow, that was.
He's actually speechless, guys. We got him.
Yeah.
Who knew? You can't stun him with the Bionicle memes, but you can stun him with gratuitous amounts of money.
Here's the thing about that. He told me that he was gonna do this weeks in advance, and I still cannot comprehend this.
I mean, I don't know if this is a generational thing or just a me thing, but like, I definitely do the thing where I expect everyone to let me down. So,
now,
or like that things won't happen.
Let me down, but like, holy shit, how is that? How is my content so good that you would pay this much money for it, my dude? So yeah, basically the Neolutionist, you've got fucking at least $20 Patreon for life. I'm gonna get in touch with you for some other shit. Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm gonna give you the special Discord rank for this.
The super special Discord rank.
No, because like if you give me like $50 a month, I'll give you special Discord rank. But like this was.
What do you get as part of special Discord rank, Burger?
No, I like you can decide for yourself what Discord rank you want when you get that. I mean, it's gonna be a custom rank that only you have.
I see. I'll have to do that 1 month. I don't know what it'd be. I like Dark Souls memes, so it'd probably be something like grossly incandescent, but...
Holy shit. Holy shit. I'm still...
Is it bad?
Somewhat...
First time I didn't...
Yes?
I didn't even realize this is what Fast Food Thursday was.
Yeah,
this is my first time checking in on for it. I knew it was a thing, that it was a stream. Like I said, I kind of watch the Shadowrun streams and I watch your videos, but like...
It used to
This is the format for Fast Food Thursday, okay.
So you're the one.
I am the asshole.
There's actually a few people who watch the Shadowrun streams. There's a Bremblo always watches them. I think Meneltier Felmaro also follows them.
I haven't been watching them as much recently, but I've been doing other things. I'm hopefully leaving my mum's place soon, which is weird because I'm millennials and that doesn't happen before like 30.
They actually moved out at... I mean, technically, I moved out age 16, but that was in like a special group for adolescents who are trying to become adults.
Ah.
I appreciate it, and I don't need anything special. I said I'd do it, and I'm a man of my word. Well, dude, your word is very good. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, Salty, you were saying something.
Trying to make a lifestyle fit. I've known for a long time if I could find a roommate or like a girlfriend or something who could like meet me halfway on costs and things that I could move out, but it's just been the golden alignment of opportunities finally turned up. So I'm hopefully in October getting at my mum's place, which is, like I say, for people. I'm 26 to give you an idea of when that's happening.
Damn. Where do you live in England?
Up north. I don't sound it, but I'm like 45 minutes south of Newcastle.
So I mean, housing is a lot cheaper there than in other places.
It is, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I'm renting what is a 2-bedroom house with a colleague, and then rent's going to be something like $320, $350, depending on what kind of broadband we put in. Then we're both younger, so I imagine we're going to have nice broadband. So something like $350 a month, including all the utility bills and council tax and all that kind of stuff. So yes, life in the north of England is significantly cheaper, certainly than the south.
I live in one of the most strangely expensive cities in Germany because it's like a small city, but it's more expensive than it should be.
I hear a lot of people who are tired of paying like London rents moved to Berlin because of rent controls. It ends up being because of rent control. It ends up being a lot cheaper.
Yeah, but Berlin is a shithole. That's why rent is cheap there. Like, literally, nobody likes living in Berlin.
It's not like living in London, where basically places that exist inside of England, London, everywhere else.
Here's
Like
the
it's its
thing.
own weird little space where everything happens and everywhere else basically doesn't exist. It's kind of weird.
I mean, it's like that in a lot of capitals in Europe, but fuck, what am I saying? What am I saying? Oh my god, I'm losing track. It's too warm. Yes,
Yeah, it is kinda warm.
most capitals are their own microcosms, and the rest of the country is dependent upon them for revenue because they make so much fucking money. Like London and Paris and all these, they're like money machines.
Copenhagen's like that as well, I
Oh
think,
my
with a
god,
major
I love
tourist trap.
Copenhagen. I love it.
I've never been, despite having. I used to have family in Denmark.
I highly recommend it. At this point, I would recommend it more than Amsterdam even, and I love Amsterdam too. But to finish this Berlin thing, Berlin is the only city in Europe, the only capital city in Europe that loses the country money. All the other capitals make the country that they are in money. Berlin is the only one that loses us money.
Which is the best? I want to say best because that brings up all kinds of subjective value judgments. But which city does make the most money in Germany then?
Oh, in Germany, it's the thing about Germany is that it has all the cities make pretty good money. Like geographically speaking, Germany is very divided by rivers, which on one hand is very good for the development of industry, but on the other hand also separates you a lot. So you need a lot of infrastructure in every city that you have, and this has been true for centuries. And this is why, over the centuries, every single major city in Germany has developed to being independent and fairly self-sufficient. But because they still trade with each other, every city in Germany is a small economic powerhouse. And the union of all of these small economic powerhouses is what makes Germany so powerful when it comes to the economy as a whole. So while the United Kingdom is also an economic powerhouse like few other countries in the world, it's just behind Germany. That's all London. I mean, it's not all London, but it's overwhelmingly London. And in Germany,
Yeah.
it's very well distributed.
I wish it was better distributed. You're probably fairly well versed in the economic situation in the UK, where obviously the south east, sort of where London is basically, is obviously incredibly wealthy, followed by the south west, then the northwest, and then the northeast. Has just historically been the poorest region, still is, which, as I say, makes it easier for me working on I work in retail sales, so my job for a fairly large company, so it ends up paying about the same regardless of where you are, and I live in a place where the cost of living is relatively cheap, which is what should hopefully allow me to move out. But yeah, the economic situation in the UK is much more concentrated, as you've just said. But
Yeah. End of Meg asks, what are some non-commentary YouTube channels you follow? I know, like Isaac Arthur. Well, obviously Isaac Arthur. I don't know, like Shadiversity is a great one. Which
oh yes, his content as well. I really enjoy it.
Did you know he's a Mormon?
I did not.
He is actually a. There's so many people who are just Mormons and you don't even know. It's like this is really, really weird.
I mean, it's a little bit like I'm not comparing Mormonism and Scientology, but there's quite a few of those floating around as well that you would never expect.
It's like Scientology, except it's not a cult. That's what Mormonism is.
Certain people would disagree with you. If you've heard, I think it was Lacey Green's Dave Rubin talk, the Rubin Report, she talked about her time with Mormonism and it being kind of cult-like.
I mean, sure, there are...
Not in the same
there are
need,
sects.
obviously, in that, all of Scientology is like that, whereas I suspect not all of Mormonism is all just like that. But yeah,
there are certainly, and I actually, this comes up because I'm gonna make a video about this exact topic tomorrow. But like the thing about, like, there are of course sects of Mormonism that are cult-like, like individual communities, but the religion overall actually doesn't, like, it has no problem with people fraternizing with outsiders, and it actually goes out of, now, many people go out of their way in there to fraternize with non-Mormons. And the same can be said about Christianity. There's a lot of sects within Christianity and like communities that are very cult-like, in that they are very endogamous and built around some like leader figures and shit. So I don't think that that's a benchmark by which you can judge the cult status of a whole
yeah.
religion.
I've just had the very interesting question pop into my head. That is, how did Roman Catholicism become top dog? Like, how did it? I'm not actually aware of this story. I'm
Rome.
assuming there is a story. Well, I mean Rome, obviously, but is it just? It's still the top dog today. I mean, culturally, Rome wasn't actually that long ago.
Military power, right?
I mean, you had Rome,
The
and then
ability
you
to
had,
enforce its will.
yeah, and then you had pretty much all the European colonial powers. Especially the Spanish. Oh my god. The Spanish really, more than Rome, did more for Catholicism. Also, Brandon Sanderson is also a Mormon. The university where he teaches is Brigham Young University, which Brigham Young is like a big leader, was a big Mormon leader. I think he's the guy who tried to found Desiree. The Mormon nation that's based upon the honeybee. The guest audio is kind of loud, is it? I turned him up because it was a bit quiet. Can anyone confirm this, that guest audio is kind of loud?
I think it's just me as a result of turning me up, but
I'm gonna turn you to like 160. There we go. Yeah, the Portuguese also did a lot, but come on, the Portuguese Empire was not as large as the Spanish Empire. You cannot seriously say that. No, Lacey was Mormon until got brought randomly up in this. Yeah, I didn't know Lacey had been Mormon as well. Or is she still Mormon?
I think she left, and then in more recent attempts to reconcile with family, has kind of had to. I mean, watch the video. It's
Okay.
Dave Rubin. It's Rubin Report. I'm sure if you just type Lacey Green Dave Rubin, then yeah, you'll get it. She talks about it in quite some depth, actually.
I'm actually very happy with Lacey, because I remember her being a little more unhinged, but ever since she got with Chris Laser Pistol, like, I don't know if it's, I don't think it's Chris who that actually, like, he is the man who teaches what the world is really like. But I think the fact that there was a personal connection there.
It will certainly have helped in that she'd have to understand that people who had these thoughts weren't monsters.
Yeah,
if she was dating one, right?
Yeah, basically, this is why I think that it's so important that we actually reach across the aisle and be friends, even though we have massively differing opinions. Because that's the only way we can actually come to some sort of consensus and understand each other. Because if we don't fraternize with outsiders to our ideology, which is basically also how cults operate, then it's very easy to dehumanize them. But if we have friends on all sides of the political spectrum, then it's, it's okay.
You could probably attribute a large part of the polarization of current, even mainstream politics nowadays, due to the fact that it's became kind of the norm that you push out people who disagree with you politically, right?
Yeah, and that's
you could point the finger at one side, does it more to the other, but the ultimate result is that both sides end up polarized, right? Like,
that's I mean, it's essentially it's encouraged even by the oh boy, I'm gonna have to pull up Firefox again. I mean, it's obviously it serves the big power players in politics. Endifmek also donated 500 rubles to me. I didn't know you were Russian. I watch Burger and I'm a furry, so I'm just as pathetic as you, Soul.
There
high
is nothing wrong with
consideration.
furries.
Wow.
I mean, you would say that, wouldn't you? There's
Yes, I
nothing
would
wrong
say.
with furries.
I think, much like everything else, and I will out myself here and that I use Second Life and engage in the community of furries. But like, much like anything else, if it's not being shoved in your face, like, if somebody isn't trying to convert you to the Church of Furry and it just kind of exists in its little thing, and it's not hurting anybody, then there's no problem. But there are definitely some types that try to impose it on everyone in some vague attempt to normalize it that pisses everyone off, I think. When it gets posted in
Agreed.
distinctly non-furry spaces, then that's just obnoxious. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like this with almost everything, isn't it? Like, I can
Basically, yeah.
appreciate that people have their own hobbies and like their own things, and that's
Another thing to mention is that there are tiers of weirdness in the furry community, and that there are definitely some people who I think are weird, even though I kind of am in that community. Like, there's very definitely, like, I almost purely engage with it as an almost like online kind of thing. Almost, I don't know if there's a word that I'm trying to search for, but like I would never go to a convention or fursuit myself.
Yeah, I mean, it puts a certain distance between. It's safer to engage in that way, and maybe you just don't want to. Is it because you don't want to expend the effort of going to a con, or is it because
No, it's like even looking at images of fursuits, I don't have the same connection to them. They strike me as weird, distinctly. I feel that it's a strong word, but you know what I mean when I say it, kind of almost like the biological disgust reflex is what I feel. You know, like when most people like see a spider or something, and it triggers that same kind of ugh. Like, I wouldn't want to associate with a person who did that.
My wife has 9 tarantulas, so we don't have that problem.
Holy shit.
You know what I mean? Well, actually, this is interesting in that I'm informed, at the very least, that the largely ubiquitous fear of spiders in the West is a cultural thing. Like, there's a little bit of spider fear that is inherent in our biology, but most of it is because your parents were scared of spiders, right?
I mean, spiders are. I mean, I'm not that scared of. Like, I have respect for spiders. I'm much more terrified of
Healthy.
snakes. Snakes, holy shit! Snakes give me the fucking creeps. Oh my god.
I don't know what it is. Maybe I've just experienced them too much as Danger Noodle memes, but they don't have that effect on me.
Like
I wouldn't touch one because I know they bite, and a good chunk of them will try and kill you with some sort of chemical in them. But like, I've almost learned to see them as almost cute, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, my girlfriend actually wanted to get some snakes from a friend of ours. And the problem with me and snakes is that they activate my fight or flight reflex. And most of the time, my fight or flight reflex does not result in flight. And
yeah, I'm entirely the way around.
I don't like birds in the same way you don't like snakes.
Birds.
I love birds and snakes.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up. I have a relative who's terrified of birds.
Is that a thing?
Yep, it's more common than you'd think it is.
I've never heard of someone being afraid of snakes, of all things.
Do you
I can
live
understand
on the moon?
snakes.
I mean, some birds are pretty freaky. Like, vultures cover their legs in their own shit, and they vomit on themselves.
I mean, but that's a rational thing. But I imagine for a lot of people, it's something to do with, much like the way arachnophobia manifests itself, is you see something inherently creepy about the way they move.
That's
and I imagine that's
what I have with snakes. The slithering of snakes, and like this ultra fast thing. Oh my god! No, you know actually listen, this birds thing has convinced me that actually creationists are right. The Bible is right, and the Earth is only 6,000 years old, because obviously the reason that people are terrified of birds is like a genetic thing they have from dinosaurs. And as we all know, early humans
Oh my
went
God.
around with dinosaurs who were then extinct by God in the flood. So basically, now I am a creationist because I know that
I
people
don't want
actually-
to indulge the idea of creationism, but it is interesting that most religious texts reference the Great Flood. Like, I don't know if there's like,
No,
There's-
they
do
don't.
we know if there was like an incredibly like a lot of rainfall in the early stages of humanity? Like, if it was could be a
Very-
cultural, like a spoken word type of thing, where there was a hell of a lot of water around. Because it seems like most historical texts reference this, and it's kind of interesting.
It's actually mostly the Abrahamitic religions that reference something like the Great Flood.
Okay.
Not only that, but I mean, regionally speaking, if you wait long enough, your culture is going to experience a great flood
Yeah.
of some
That's
sort.
true.
So that's
Hey,
the thing.
My bird fear was triggered when we were visiting England. Actually, we were visiting the Roman baths in Bath, and there was a guy outside of the baths, kind of looked like a homeless guy, but he was walking around just covered in pigeons.
What?
Yeah, he had bird seed and like pigeons on his head.
I
His
will say that our
arms.
British avian life does seem to be incredibly bold. I think we need to kick them more.
Well, I mean, he was walking around and like handing people bird food to feed to these fucking pigeons, and then he walked near us, and I was like, "No, fuck this shit." But I couldn't go anywhere because that part of that town,
Is it-
right outside the
I don't
baths,
know.
is just
Britain's
so
so
packed.
small.
I don't know if this is a British thing. Are seagulls as bold everywhere else?
Dude,
Seagulls
I live in,
are
kind
a
of
motherfucker. Fuck
100%.
seagulls.
For stealing like food from people in the UK. So
They steal fucking fish sandwiches out of my hand.
It's not the seagulls I'm concerned about here. It's the fucking geese. It's all the geese where I live. It's the Canadian geese.
And that's why we should shoot them.
I mean,
It's
geese
illegal in
and-
Canada. You can't shoot the geese. They're like
have
fucking
we-
mobsters too. They
have we
they're like
answered the
they're all
question
in.
whether swans or geese are more dangerous.
I actually don't know. I've never seen a swan. Like maybe once.
Really?
There's not a whole lot of swans in southern Ontario. At least that I've seen.
Yeah, we get quite a. I don't know why we have so many swans in Britain. Are they? I'm not sure if they're native or not.
I fought
no
a swan once.
That seems like the kind of thing you would have done.
Yeah, no, we were on
What's-
like with a boys' home. We were on like a biking tour from. I think it was the one where we went from the source of the Rhine River up to where the boys' home was, which we did like 1 week of wandering, and then we like trekking, hiking. That's the thing, the English term. And then we went on bikes for 2 weeks. And one night we stopped near like a small lake. It was somewhere in southern Germany. Like it was really small. Like it was barely larger than my apartment. It wasn't even a lake. It was just a body of water.
A pond.
There were a huge amount of swans there. And in the morning, I woke up and it was like 5 in the morning. I wanted to take a piss. I opened my tent door, and out there is just a swan. He was just standing there. The sun was coming in from the other side, so I didn't see his outline. And he was just there. I don't know how long he'd been standing there because I didn't hear him walk up. And he looks at me, and immediately the motherfucker just goes, and he fucking attacks me. And I had to I was terrified. I didn't even have my shoes on. And he bit my fucking foot. And then I kicked him in the fucking neck, and I think I almost killed him. I think I gave him an injury that eventually killed him slowly and painfully. But holy shit, that was
Here we
terrible.
go. It
We
won't
can
be
only
for the
hope
free speech
that
violations. It will be for abusing wildlife.
Yes.
This is why they will come for burger. I think you can actually get arrested for like harming swans in the UK because I
But
think they're a
the
protected
swan
species.
that's why I have so many swans. The swan attacked me though. I didn't
Yeah, I
attack
know.
the swan. It was my tent.
Great.
Did I miss the Swan story?
Yeah, you did miss the Swan story. Why would
I
you
was
gone
going to
that
ask,
way?
when you
Another
become a
person?
massively successful content creator, are you going to do a Draw My Life episode?
Pardon?
Wait.
When you become a now that you're a massively successful content creator, are you going to do a Draw My Life episode?
What is Draw My Life?
Draw My Life was a thing that was going around on YouTube a little while ago, where it was like a hand drawn version of people telling them what their life has been like leading to them to this point in their YouTubery. If you type in "Draw My Life" on YouTube, you probably see quite a few from.
It's just like a
creators you
sped up
recognize.
video of them, drawing.
It's like a 15 to 20-minute video about where they came from and what's led them to this point. And
I
There's
don't
usually
think I
like
could
cheery
summarize
music
my
in the
life story
background,
in 20
like
minutes.
fucking
Pardon?
Billy
banjo
Pichu
music.
one that stuck in my head. So
I guess it depends on the creator. Sometimes there's no music, I guess.
it depends if you've already told us everything about your younger years, because some creators like to keep a lot of that to themselves. And Berger does kind of elaborate a lot on his past. So
I am fairly open about it because IRL too. Like a lot of people here, oh, you grew up in a boys' home. I want to know everything about that. So I'm very used to telling people.
it is kind of a different experience
about
to
my
what most
life.
people
Yeah,
get.
yeah,
So
it's very different.
I have a friend who is almost entirely homeschooled.
I was
I
like
think
that.
he'd be a really interesting one to get a Reddit AMA out of or something. Just because, although he wouldn't appreciate it because he hates people. But
I was homeschooled for like the entirety of up
It's
until
not-
high
it's not-
school.
accurate to say he was homeschooled. He was home tutored in that his
Ah.
parents weren't the one doing it. They hired a tutor just because he has.
I see.
It's he has a level of autism that makes him struggle in public education settings, basically. So And
Does he
he's
request
actually
high
really
fives
smart.
from people?
what? There's a story here, and I don't get it.
There was this autistic black guy, and I mentioned that he's black because minority points will come into this. Who was at like uni, and I don't know what the context was, but I think it was with some female clerk, and he wanted to make friends. He's like autistic, but he's super outgoing, and so he goes like
Autistic extroverts are a really interesting class of people.
That's the best combination.
Yeah, he was like, oh, give me. What's the word? Give me a fist bump. That's how he sort of talks to it. Like, that's how he gets to know people. That's super cool. If he would have come up to me, that would have been my best friend for life, man.
What a guy.
Yeah, and she was on the other side of a big desk. And then apparently she complained, she gave him the fist bump, and later she complained to the school board that he raped her. Not that he raped her, but that he fondled her. Right?
What the fuck?
She filed it's worse. She filed a Title IX on him.
Hell?
Yeah, I don't know what that is, a Title IX. What is that? Explain.
It makes it. It's basically it's a regulation that's supposed to protect people from sexual misconduct, so that they don't have.
It didn't actually
problems
start out
attending
for that, did
school.
it? I seem to remember Title IX originated as a way of making sure that if a school was going to spend money on a gendered school program, they had to spend the same amount of money on the gist of it is they wanted the girls programs to receive the same funding as the boys programs.
But that still doesn't
and it
happen.
kind of blossomed out into trying to equalize everything between genders in academia, and it is now most commonly cited as the ruling by which a lot of sexual assault cases happen.
No.
I don't think that's a thing. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, but I don't think that's a thing because there's
it
no
never
way
was
in hell.
intended to be used the way it's used today, basically.
Well, I'm just saying, there's no way in hell that Alabama, I don't think they're spending the same on their dance squad as they are on their football team.
So what ended up
Someone
happening?
was saying that a friend of hers made the complaint. I don't know. Can you lodge a Title IX for someone else?
You can, yeah. It's not like actual legal systems.
You can file a Title IX if you see it happen. I mean, you don't even have you get if you see it or hear about it. You know, it is very very like
depending on the school
anti-justice.
district you're in as well. Even if you don't want to do it, a lot of the time they'll be like pushed. Once the complaint has been lodged, the administration will actually like push them to make the complaint and like basically twist their arm to make it, which is kind of disgusting.
Fucked up and not how the
Sometimes-
legal system is supposed to work.
Sometimes
It's not
the
the actual
administration
legal
will
system,
file it.
though. You'll see that quite a few times just recently, people have sued their school districts and won in the
Exactly.
US because of exactly this kind of behavior.
Exactly. Title IX is a cancer in the school systems. I get that they were trying to do something good, but in
I don't
trying
defend
to
it.
do
I'm just
something
aware
good, they went too
Now being
far.
used for this. Yeah. Basically, it's a different standard of evidence. It's not beyond reasonable doubt. Is it preponderance based? Like instead of having to be 95% confident, you have to be over 50% confident. So it results in a whole lot of innocent people being accused of things they never did.
I don't even think you have to hit 50%, to be completely honest with you. I think in most cases it's just
The
is
way
it
Title IX is
plausible?
currently being implemented, it's basically if you are accused, you are guilty.
That's exactly right.
Because
Is it plausible?
it's not that you go to prison; it's that you are removed. It's that you're basically you're
Like you're suspended or you're removed from the school.
Yeah, you're removed from the school basically. So
See,
they're not
and that's
technically. It's not made to conform to the same standards as a criminal justice case.
And that's the worst part about it, is that it's administration based. So the administration is going to look out for the school's reputation over that student's right to be there.
So you end up in the same situation that the places
So
like
all the evidence
Facebook
they
and
look
YouTube
at
are
is going to be biased from the point of view of the administration. They're going to say, well,
subversion of the legal system.
It is. It's
Exactly.
basically its own little
That's
alternative
exactly
legal
what it's
system
for.
inside universities, which is
that is exactly what it's for. Is it's to get around the legal system.
Man, I'm
If they actually
so
had to
looking forward to
devote the
going to school
resources-
again.
if they actually had to devote the resources that the actual legal system does to actually resolving these cases, then it would cost so much money, and that's why it's easy for them to just go, she claims you raped her, why would she lie?
I watched
Hashtag believe all women.
the newsroom I finished the newsroom a few days ago. It was a fucking great show, man. I'm really sad that they ended it so early. And there was this.
I was pissed when they canceled it. I was
See,
literally
the
pissed. I
thing
threw
is that
shit.
The creator actually cancelled it. It wasn't even the network.
Pardon my ignorance, but what is the newsroom?
It's a television show that's really good, but a lot of critics didn't like it because it talks about the media. There was one episode where they had a thing because like a lot of the shows about journalistic integrity and like due process and shit like that. And there's this one episode where a girl that had been raped made this like website where you could make rape accusations public, because it is. I mean, it's a very complicated issue. It is a problem that with many women who have been raped, rape is an incredibly difficult thing to prove in a legal system that wants to make sure that nobody who is innocent gets to go to jail, right? Or gets falsely accused. So I can certainly understand, like, when people say that you can get away with raping someone, that is true, legally speaking, because we have such a high standard of evidence. But at the same time, if we were to reduce that standard of evidence, that would essentially put on its head the entire legal system. And I can understand why you would want to, because you feel powerless if the police doesn't help you in such a situation, right? So I can see why you would want to sort of do this.
The problem here is that, or one of the problems, is that it seems like in most other types of accusations that the identity of the defendant is kept secret until after they are proven guilty. But this right isn't protected in sexual assault or rape cases a lot of the time. In quite a few places. So it means that a false rape claim basically destroys the accused, regardless of whether or
Good
not
luck
they're...
getting a job now.
Yeah, that's the problem, because
Anywhere.
we sort of went ahead, and that deficiency in the legal system, where we can't properly persecute rapists, that was just something that, like, mob justice took on instead. And now, if you get falsely accused of rape, you're fucked. You really, even though if you didn't do anything, right? And that is that's
Even if it's put out in a court of law and the accuser recants their accusation publicly, it's out there. It's already being publicized. People are talking about it, and you can never the phrase it's what was it? A lie gets around the world while the truth is still getting its boots on.
Yeah.
Kind of comes to mind.
And that is ultra fucked up, and that's a big problem. And that whole episode sort of went into this topic, and like the producer tried to take like a stand where, yeah, I totally understand you and where you're coming from. And they had the actress who played the girl that was raped and did the website. It was very, very well explored, the topic, right? But people hated it because it wasn't like, mob justice, yeah, mob justice, fucking good.
It got the Lindsay Sterling treatment. Do you remember that from one of the Canadian universities, where she tried to show a balanced... What was the lecture about? She showed a clip of Jordan Peterson
thing.
Yeah, she showed a clip of Jordan Peterson
Lindsay
and had
Lindsay Sterling was a musician.
Yes, not Lindsay Shepherd. There we go.
Yeah.
You know what I meant.
She's showing a Jordan Peterson video, and then she was sent to a fucking tribunal where they basically...
It's a crusade more than a tribunal.
Yeah. Well, no, she was put into a conference where they basically told her that her showing that video was problematic, and
even
equivalent to like showing
I think what they said was that her showing the video, even without guiding the students that this is a bad person, right? Like she didn't preface this by saying this person is evil.
They also
by trying to show it
to like showing a Nazi propaganda video without without
condemning it previously,
which is a ludicrous comparison, because I don't even if you're not a huge fan of Jordan Peterson, it's kind of ridiculous to compare him to one of the most evil human beings ever to live on the planet.
But that's one of the things that we've been doing, that we talked about earlier. We want to dehumanize the other side. That's what the polarization is. And if you accept that maybe Jordan Peterson sometimes has good thoughts, then that means that you see him as a human being, and that's evil, because that means you're not pure in your belief.
You are the enemy. You're the you're the other. You're the enemy. You're impure.
Yeah, it's a cult.
A member of the out group, which is kind of the problem. I guess we never get over this, though, right? Like, until transhumanism kicks in and we can kind of get over our firmware, we are inherently tribalistic.
Well, I don't... There have been times where... I mean, right now, polarization is very mainstream. There have been times where it wasn't. Where you could be friends with someone on the right, and it was no problem. And if you talked about politics, you could even talk about politics and disagree and say, you're a fucking idiot. And, and that was that. And then you went and had a beer together, right? That's the way it should be.
Golf.
There's a lot of cycles, if you look at human history, cycles of like civilizations. I think you may have talked about this, Burger. Like, I don't know if you made a video. Maybe I saw someone else make a video on it, but basically like how civilizations go through cycles.
Yeah, I did. That was the generational cycle.
Yeah.
And there's also the Kondratiev cycles with the economy.
Like a similar thing kind of happened. Like it's in the similar sense of like radicalism and irrationality took over a mostly rational kind of world, which was kind of the end of the Roman Empire in Egypt, in Alexandria, where Christianity was becoming like way more popular and prevalent. And radical Christianity was becoming super popular, and some of the Roman emperors were beginning to become Christian, and there were still pagan populations, but they were becoming more small and more like... It was like the upper class kind of rich people were the pagans, where most of the lower classes were Christian. and there was this really big hatred of paganism that was growing amongst kind of the large Christian population, the ever-growing one, and kind of glossing over a lot of history, the Roman emperor at the time, whose name I cannot remember, but he was a Christian emperor, and he basically, there was a huge riot in Alexandria between the Christians and the pagans, because the Christians were throwing like shit at like pagan statues, and they essentially, there was a huge like civil, like the whole city was a riot, and there's like a small battle. Eventually, the end result was the Christians had the pagans locked in the Serapeum, which was like the big temple in Alexandria that had the last remaining books of the Library of Alexandria, which is gone by this point. And eventually, the Roman emperor, who was Christian, gave the order that the pagans could leave, but the Christians could go into the temple and do whatever they wanted, because the Serapeum was also a shrine to Serapis, who was a pagan god, and the Roman emperor wanted like a lot of pagan shrines to be destroyed, so he just let the Christians go in, and they burned all the books, they destroyed all the statues, and they essentially destroyed all the remaining knowledge of the library, which is now lost forever. And they killed. Eventually, this didn't just end there. Like eventually, they killed a few of like the big scholars of. It was a big. Sorry for the ramble, but it's just.
It's interesting.
This kind of shit has
They made a
happened
movie
throughout all
about
of
it,
human
didn't they?
history. It's not just now.
I always think it's really interesting when you talk about stuff like this, and you remember that people seem to think that, or there's a belief that we're better than the people who came before us, just like inherently.
No.
Well, we are better, as in we're more educated, like just objectively, we're more educated.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, this also happened, like, in the before the Third Reich became a thing, right? Before the rise of the Nazis. Like, people like to think that the Nazis were on the rise in Germany back then, in like the late Weimar Republic. But as a matter of fact, it was both the Nazis and the communists. And in the beginning, you didn't know which of the two sides was going to win. And
Weren't
both
the
of
Nazis-
them hated each other so much that was how they recruited followers. Is, those people are dangerous. You need to be careful of those. Join us, and then you will be safe from them. We can protect you from them. And that is a significant part of how... because the Nazis eventually won. Because here's the thing, when the two political extremes go to war with each other, the centrists always lose. Because centrists have a tendency to... Centrism, I'm not one of those people who thinks that centrism is passive, or that centrists just haven't decided anything. I say, I want a centrist government, even though I myself do not consider myself a centrist. But the thing with centrists is that they won't stand up for centrism because they're very opposed to extremism, and militarily standing up for something or against something is inherently something that extremists do.
Radical centrism is kind of an oxymoron.
Radical centrism. Yeah, I mean, like
Some
even
black guy makes that T-shirt.
Oh yeah, like even in Alexandria, I was talking about earlier. One person was kind of martyred. Well, in the future later was martyred. Was Hypatia of Alexandria. She was a really well-respected teacher at the Serapeum, and she was a central. Like she wasn't a pagan or a Christian. She was a Neoplatonist, and she just kind of didn't care about all the. She just kind of wanted to. She was very much a, I don't really care what your religion is. It doesn't matter. We should just like, learn and respect each other. And she ended up getting a few, like maybe like, I don't like 20, I think, years after the destruction of the Serapeum, when Christianity had completely taken over. And by the way, I'm not like bashing on Christianity or anything, but in this specific case, radical Christianity was a problem in Alexandria. Dab on them haters. But she was accused of witchcraft by the Pope. The Pope of Alexandria, not like there were different popes in different regions of the empire, but the Pope of Alexandria, she was charged for witchcraft and was subsequently kidnapped on her way to work, and then she was dragged into a church, stripped naked, and then she was beaten, and then they stoned her to death essentially because she I don't know.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Hypatia died at the end, which is really shitty because
Hitler dies later.
Yeah, Hitler died.
I love
We
how,
think.
it's like in next year, after like in mid-September next year, there will be people who are adults who were not alive during 9/11.
Oh.
And like in 2030, that shit will be taught in history books.
Yeah, I guess 9/11 is kind of a major historical event, isn't it?
Oh, it is a huge historical event.
It like it is what started pretty much all the wars in the Middle East. I don't really think about it that much, but yeah, it is which is kind of
We
scary
think of it
because
as contemporary history rather than like, but it's going to become something that has gone on to shape the face of the world after
Oh.
it. So yeah,
not in a good way either, in a really, really bad way.
I mean, this is the thing with history is that the smart people learn from it, right? Like,
the smart. How many of them do you think are in the world, though?
But here's the thing: this is something that actually makes me very optimistic. As I said earlier, we are like objectively just more educated than people used to be. We are smarter. Like the average person today is way smarter than the average person even 100 years ago. And so the amount of smart people who can learn from history, especially as we gain an increased awareness of it, increases with every passing generation. So that's why I am generally... that's why I think education is such an incredibly important thing.
the world is actually getting a little brighter every day, right?
that
Like
is
this
true,
is the
yes.
thing.
That is true.
Yeah, like,
We have all this
you
doom
guys-
and gloom, and it's because of the doom and gloom that we push it to make it brighter every day. But we are actually like lifting people out of poverty
Yeah, like-
at an unheard of rate, which is
This
You
is
guys
the
heard of,
best time to be alive right now.
Yeah, it is.
in anywhere. Like your odds of doing better now than you would have are better than they have ever been, and
Yeah,
hopefully every day that passes they get better. Right?
We have penicillin and
Not for long.
oh.
I mean, even if you live in the darkest recesses of Africa, like the middle of the jungle, where there's no sunlight reaches the ground, even there, it's better than it's ever been. And that's actually something that's very good. We're far from solving all of the problems, right? But
Yeah.
we
Well,
are
I mean, we'll
closer
never
to it
solve all the
today than
problems.
I
we
want
ever were.
you to briefly consider what the advent of the mobile phone has done to Africa.
Oh, holy shit. With
Like-
there's so much, like, if Elon Musk actually properly deploys his mobile internet with the satellites, there's going to be so much economic growth in poor regions of the world, especially Africa.
What's the progress on that? I heard a little bit about that, but not much. Is that going
the first
through?
satellites
Or?
are supposed to launch next year, I think.
Oh, nice.
It's super interesting because Africa and South America are incredibly like resource-rich nations that are currently suffering but due to basically poor mismanagement. And as soon as that gets fixed, right?
A lot of I think it was Honduras, the first South African country to actually use the blockchain as a legitimate part of an aspect of their governments. I think they managed the land ownership system over a blockchain.
It kind of makes sense.
It makes huge sense. And like in Africa right now too, the thing with Africa is that you need to build up. A lot of Africa is being exploited by foreign powers like China. And Western powers also through corporations. And they take their resources and don't give them anything. And they support these fucking warlords who will keep the regular people down, because the warlords are at the end of the day also those who supply the big diamond sellers with the diamonds. And the internet is such a great tool of giving people power over their situation because they can just organize, right? There's so many complex administratorial tasks for which you would ordinarily need a whole caste of administrators, right? We used to need that in the West too, and now we're slowly switching to the internet, and computers can just do a lot of organization a lot more efficiently, a lot more easily than humans could ever do.
China is also trying to kind of stamp that out in Africa. Like they are dealing with like certain warlords. I don't know which ones, but certain warlords in Africa, they're actually like giving them advice on how to like censor their internets and prevent their people from actually having free access to the internet.
Which is
Just
why
one of the
China
reasons
is
why
the
the
enemy and
satellites
needs
are
to be
amazing.
stopped. Pardon?
Yeah, that's why the satellites are amazing, because it means they'll have an alternate way into the main, like the rest of the world. Because
Yeah,
we really
fuck you,
don't want
China.
African interests being just China'd. This is a new verb. You're getting China'd. But
Honestly,
yeah,
Elon Musk might save the poor of the world with his project there.
him and Bill and the Gates Foundation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Gates Foundation does a lot of good work. Like, it's incredible. The whole malaria research. I don't think anyone has done as much for malaria research as Bill Gates.
It's interesting. I saw it was on Futurology on Reddit, which usually means it's bullshit. But like, apparently we've managed to study the what would you call it? The food chain and the kind of ecological impact. If we just entirely genocided the species of mosquito that's responsible for malaria, no major side effects. Apparently.
Really?
That's
I know.
We did that
That
once.
seems.
We did that once, and it had huge negative consequences.
Right, but as far as we can tell, which we do normally have an incomplete picture, so yeah. But as far as we can tell, we're
I'm
perfectly
always
comfortable
very.
to just obliterate that species.
I'm always
of
very
mosquito.
cautious when I hear people talking about obliterating any kind of species.
I mean, we could essentially just replace the species with genetic engineering with one that isn't capable of carrying the malaria virus.
Well, this is one solution, is that it's specifically the female mosquito that's the problem. And it's a specific species that is identifiable by a unique, I think it's its wing pattern. When it flies, it's how it flies is unique.
I mean, as long as other mosquitoes would take its place, its ecological niche, it shouldn't be a problem then.
But it's been suggested that we can use, I think it's some combination of CRISPR and gene drive technologies, and basically genetically alter mosquitoes so that the females that are capable of spreading the malaria virus are infertile. So they just it just kills them, like that entire. They can't breed.
The Neolutionist just posted a thing where they apparently used CRISPR to make the
mosquitoes resistant malaria parasite. That's another way of going at it. Yeah.
And so,
gene drive was
somebody
something
said that Nigeria would be an economic powerhouse in just a few years. Not just a few years, like a decade or two still. But yeah, Nigeria is actually one of the most economic
almost
nations in Africa.
certain that
Wait, what?
the African continent will become very wealthy soon. Yeah.
Yeah, Nigeria has a lot of natural resources. Nigeria is relatively independent. Nigeria is at a great geographical location. Nigeria has very good diplomatic ties to the rest of the world. And Nigeria actually has some fairly high-tech cities. So
Really?
They also have all those princes.
Yeah, all of the African countries around the coast will do very well in the near future. More inland might struggle.
They have all the Nigerian princes.
Like Nigeria and Kenya are two nations that are going to be, and Botswana also. But Botswana is mostly oil money that are going to be doing quite well over the next few decades.
Something that's going to blow a lot of people's minds coming up is that the African cities, because they don't. I imagine the existing cities will probably be expanded, but they're going to be much more modern cities than Europe and cities in the US.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because they're going to be started from the beginning with currently modern building materials and planning ideas and everything we already know about municipal planning, they get to benefit from.
Yeah.
Right? These are going to be some really interesting places coming up. It's a bit like Dubai. Like, we all think of Dubai as this really... It's a really modern city because it basically was erected from the sand in, like... When was that? Like this... I don't want to put a date. Is it like the 70s or the 80s? It's a really new city.
I like these new... Most of these new cities are like planned cities. I like them. I like the cities where they just decide we're going to build a city now and we're going to build it here, because it falls into this science fiction trope of it all looks kind of similar and there's a good like a unified style to it. This is like true for Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, and Canberra, the capital of Australia. Which, have you seen Australian Government House?
No.
It is, oh my god, I'm going to post a picture of it in chat. Australian Government House is brilliant. Canberra Government House. Yeah, I don't think it's called Government House. It's called Government Complex? Building Complex?
Basically, modern building is an interesting and very different from a lot of the architecture and relatively unplanned sprawl of most older European cities, even some American cities, right? Like, obviously, American cities were mostly planned that way, and they're all very... the concept of a block is relatively unheard of in Europe, right? Like, because there just wasn't this square planning thing going on when we made our cities. They just kind of sprawled.
There's some cities who have it, but it's not generally.
That's where it's been added to more recently.
Square is great.
Most cities here started as market towns near rivers, and just it happened naturally, so they just kind of grew very organically. But like the new cities that will be made in Africa and South America will be in very, very interesting places in the near future.
Yeah, I might move there.
It'll be very good to buy a land just before the boom.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, Africa faces a lot of problems with how, with the terrain. They don't really have good terrain to build on in many areas, but I mean, London is also not built on an area that has very good terrain, so...
Edinburgh is literally on like a cliff.
Yeah, I mean that's especially with modern technology. Yeah, this is the the Australian Parliament House. This is the whole Australian Parliament is hosted in this building.
For some reason. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Pentagon.
Like there's I found this.
I deliberately design aesthetic.
I was watching.
I'm annoyed it's not symmetrical.
It is sort of symmetrical.
Yeah, sort of.
I watched The Secret City recently on Netflix. It's like an Australian espionage drama, and I liked it very much.
Liked it?
Yeah. Actually, Canberra gets so cold that they get frost in winter.
Really?
Yeah, Canberra is apparently ultra cold. For Australian standards.
Yeah. I mean, like how, like what, like fucking 10 degrees, negative 10 degrees? That's like nothing.
They are, I think Canberra's on like the southern tip of Australia, right?
It's not on the tip of Australia. It's between Melbourne and Sydney.
It's fairly far south, though.
Mannheim and Barcelona are famous for their blocks. Yeah, I was about to mention Mannheim. They have like a special street grid. Yeah, and also Barcelona. So there are some European cities that did the grid thing fairly early on, but like most of them didn't really. No, it's like Melbourne is farther south even, and it's really warm there. And like Canberra is closer to Sydney than it is Melbourne.
Yeah, this is one of the things where I was once asked this, and it took our class. This was at GCSE level, so that's like sub 16. We were asked why there are no pine forests in the southern hemisphere, and then we slowly came to the realization that's because there's no land where there would be like there's no alpine region in the south because there's no
pine forests around Canberra though.
But like big ones, like you find in Scandinavia or in the lakes, right? Like and northern Canada and things. There's just not an Arctic-y type or an alpine climate in the south, which is then subsequently brought to me the idea that when we get the technology to be able to build things that aren't just oil rigs on oceans, I want you to imagine like sprawling metropolises that
Oh yeah,
don't
I would
require a
love
land
to
mass
live
would
on a
be
big
super
ocean
interesting places.
That'd be pretty expensive.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
don't know. That's the thing, right? Like,
at that
I
point,
imagine
we
it
would
would be.
need the land. Living on the sea would be super convenient because you always have access to big trade routes as opposed to living inland. And it's not as expensive as one might think. And we would build these in a time of massive economic boom from like space exploration. So,
or even sooner, depending on how ubiquitous we can get graphene to become, because
yes,
it's
yes.
a really good
We
building
can
material
build
and
them
it's
without
fairly common.
graphene, but graphene is very convenient.
There's specific. I remember looking into this as part of the it's called seasteading, but people who basically have taken to the idea of trying to make countries on seas in international waters. There's a type of algae apparently that would be incredibly handy for making graphene more efficiently. I forget what it is. It's near. It naturally occurs near the Seychelles, I believe, out in that region. Which, or at least for one production vector of graphene, involves this algae, and another reason why Africa might become really important in the near future.
There are some like technologies that we are getting closer into every day, like nuclear fusion and graphene.
Fusion changes just
Let's hope
about
China
everything.
doesn't get there first.
They are hopefully not. That really,
They aren't
there would be
far
such...
ahead in their research on fusion, to be fair.
Pardon?
I don't think China's fusion research is as far ahead as European
No.
and American.
I think
Thankfully.
the only reactor that
They're heavily dumping into what we currently consider renewable.
they're going green really hard because of all the fucking smog, which is actually something that's good. But like I think there's been one reactor, the Wendelstein, I think it was, that actually managed efficient fusion, which is but like it's so little efficiency that it's really not worth it.
And I think it only held it for like 10 seconds or something. It was not.
Yeah, and that too. But
it's something where the West is working on quite heavily, and I imagine if it's possible, we'll get there in hopefully in the not too distant future.
That'd be nice.
The Neolutionist, did you just dox yourself on stream?
I mean, he posted his like city, I think, so that's not too bad. But
yeah, and the thing about it's like you hear this a lot about historically, where they had all these, they were looking forward to these technologies that eventually didn't come about, or they came about and they were actually shit, like a nuclear fission, which is not as bad as people make it out to be, but it is very easy to be scared of.
It's still per megawatt hour produced the most green and safest energy source.
Yeah, but the thing is, even before nuclear fission became a thing, you had people saying, be careful with this shit because bad things can happen. Nobody's saying this about nuclear fusion, and nobody's saying this about graphene.
What is graphene? I've never heard of that before.
It's basically explain that, Salty. I think you can probably do it better than I can.
Really? Okay. Graphene at a molecular level is a rearrangement of carbon. So, in much the same way that diamonds are a particular layout of carbon, and that pencil lead, graphite, is another. Graphene is basically a carbon material that is, I think it's hexagonal, but it forms like layers, like atomic, like one atom thick layers. Like its molecule spreads out horizontally, it doesn't spread out vertically. And this makes it very good at lots of things, basically. Because between the layers there's very little friction, it bends very easily while retaining lots of strength. But it's also the actual gaps in the hexagon shape pattern allows it to store electrons, which means it's the first leap in battery technology that we've had since the lead acid battery was developed like 400 years ago? It's some French guy made the lead acid battery that we still currently basically use today. So instead of using the interaction between an acid and two different metals to store electricity chemically, it's more of a physics-based process than a chemistry-based process, if that makes sense. And that means that it actually is way more efficient at storing and also letting go of, again, of electrons, which means, incidentally, that it basically it's probably going to be the basis for something that's getting called a supercapacitor. The idea being that currently capacitors are capable of discharging and recharging very quickly, but can't hold lots of energy, whereas a battery can discharge and recharge very slowly, but can hold lots of power. And hopefully, we hope that one of the applications of graphene is making something that takes the best of both worlds and smashes them together. It's certainly, if it is ever made, it certainly makes electric vehicles and the likes and drones much more reasonable.
And also, Michio Kaku described it thusly when he said that you could have a sheet of graphene and you could put a pencil on it and you could put an elephant on that pencil and it wouldn't break the sheet of graphene, even though there was so much weight concentrated on such a little point.
It's very strong.
Yeah, it's
being looked into as the thing that will replace silicon for making flexible displays and things.
Oh.
Yeah, it's also flexible. And I don't know if this is true, but apparently if you pass salt water through it, it just keeps the salt and you have clean water on the other end. So it's perfect for that as well. But I read this on Future.
Yes.
So it's
I'm
not true.
going to need to look more into this. I don't know why I've never heard of this.
Graphene is basically a wonder material if we can produce it the way we think we can.
I mean, we can produce it, but it's too expensive at this point.
Yeah, it's basically a process of making it cheaper. It's also, in theory, at the very least, strong enough to make the fabled space elevator. You know how we have this problem at the moment that not even steel can support enough of it under its own weight to get us far enough out?
But that's not entirely true. We would still have to stagger it. We'd still have to
finagle it, but it makes the idea of a space lift much more feasible. It actually can support enough of its own weight that we could get pretty far with it. Because even like steel cable starts to snap at the lengths we're talking about when you lift it vertically up.
Well, I hope I live long enough to see something like that.
Well, you might, because you might live 800 years.
That's true. Life expectancy keeps getting longer and longer and longer. Nano machines tend to bring a great promise of.
I keep hearing like people talk about this like life extension, and I'm not like. I accept that it.
We understand a lot more about the process of aging now than we did even 10 years ago. So
I just don't know if that's something that's feasibly going to be something that I'll ever see.
We didn't think more and more. Well, more and more people are currently making it to 100. We used to think
but that's more just
not necessarily a good thing.
That's more just due to better medicine and
right. Where you can see how effective.
It's not because it's extended their lives. Like,
most
if there was any large development
that
in
we've
medicals.
done was make sure that we don't die early at this point. That's how we raised up life expectancy. But with the extreme advances that we're seeing in like anti-aging fields, it's unlikely that. How old are you, Dr. Hospitaler, if you want to disclose that?
I'm turning 21 tomorrow.
Yeah, you're probably gonna see at least 150. And the thing with that is, if you
because you'll make it to 150. You're more likely to be able to make it to 200, which makes you more likely to be able to make it to 300.
Yeah, because like not only do you age more and have more time to pass that critical point where people become immortal, but also the people who are working on these technologies become older and more experienced and more specialized in their fields. And the closer we inch to the thing, to the immortality, the more money will be invested into it. So there's a 75% chance that you will at some point gain biological immortality.
Well, we're currently a lot of the research at the moment is going into telomeres.
Yeah, that's a big.
And if we can crack telomeres, that is basically the process by which DNA deteriorates and we become old.
That's a huge step.
If we can crack telomere length and we can actually stop our, is it actually your the correct word? Is it the gene shortening, like the end being
it's exactly
cut off,
the
basically?
are the bits at the end that get shorter.
If we can stop that happening, that will eliminate a lot of what we currently experience as aging. I don't think it gets rid of all of it. There are a few other there are bits and pieces that tie into what aging is.
There are 7,
but that's a lot of
according
it.
to Aubrey de Grey and the Sense Foundation, there are 7 things that you need to fix for aging. But like telomeres are the big one. And essentially, if you fix telomeres, I don't think you would just destroy most cancers, but you would make cancer a really rare thing.
It means that mutations happen much more cleanly. Yes.
Also,
it's exact copy.
What is that thing? I can't watch the video on stream, but can you explain what's going on in there? Because apparently it's a fast way of making a lot of graphene.
There's lots of theories floating around about how to make graphene in all sorts of places. So, it looks like it's electrolysis, but I don't know. I think they would say electrolysis if that's what it was.
Well, it says electrochemicals.
Yeah. But that could mean anything.
Well, again, I mean, I do hope to. I mean, I hope I get to live to be fucking 105, but I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket.
Oh, you shouldn't. You should live life as though you wouldn't become immortal. That's the thing that I don't understand. Many people who think that if I were immortal, I would never do anything. It's like, what the fuck is your reason for doing things?
Oh my god, I would
because you want to do them.
That would just change how we live life.
Oh,
there's no longer this idea of you go through the stage of, you know, you do school and then you have the job phase, or you do the jobs and you make the money, and then you're retirement and then you die. That would be erased.
Yeah,
immortality has serious repercussions on how we treat criminal justice. Like 25 years in prison at the moment is a really big chunk of your life, right? Unless we want to have to be able to support a prison system for like 700 years. To imprison an immortal, right? Like,
I don't think at that point
have to
it would be that much of a problem to support that type of thing. Resources.
I mean, there's also the fact that in an age of immortals, is it immoral to kill somebody? Like, obviously it's immoral to kill somebody, but like, it is now. But is it?
Nah, death penalty.
Is it worth it for like the state-sanctioned execution? Like,
I am firmly against the death penalty, but I do think that
because basically, if it is, it depends if you believe that people have aspects of their characters that are truly that will not change. Right.
The thing about I'm not even against the death penalty because I want psychopaths who kill people to be able to be alive. I'm against the death penalty because even the slightest chance of an innocent person being executed is an absolute no-go. Like it cannot happen.
It's happened plenty of times.
Pardon?
It should never happen. It does happen, but it's a horrific injustice.
That's why I don't have the death penalty, because there can be no risk of that happening. And also, it's a bit of a problem if the state has the right to end people's lives. That's a bit of a tricky situation. I mean, obviously, it's the.
I mean, that's the same reason why the debate around euthanasia is very hotly debated, right? Like,
but that would be people making that choice on their own.
Well, at the moment, it's certain countries allow it if it's sort of medically, I don't know, quote unquote recommended by, I think it has to be 2 or more doctors, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's good either. You can't do that either.
Which means the people don't have the choice to decide when they want to die either, which is kind of the same problem.
So it's for me. It's either you still have the faculties to decide I want to die, or you have like a pre-written statement, and then it has to be said by like a couple doctors that okay, there is nothing we can do about this person in the vegetative state. Pull the plug. That's the only way I.
Or even if they're just going to spend the rest of their existence in pain, really.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
That's why we have do not resuscitates and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly, like that, but also for like dying.
I mean, DNRs are okay if you end up in a state that you need resuscitating, but if you just like hurt all the time.
Yeah, it is a shit way to be.
On the subject, I'm aware that apparently, drug war or not, we're starting to get some new ways of pain relief that don't involve. Obviously, the most powerful pain relief solutions we have at the moment involve opioids, and I've heard on the grapevine. I'd have to go look digging for specifics, but I'm informed there's some new classes of drugs that interact with how we experience pain in a different fashion from the way opioids do. And subsequently, that there is a massive problem. Weed is one of those, but I'm aware that some of the challenges is the fact that we don't actually have pain receptors as such. It's very interesting how pain works if you look into it, in that we basically take a signal from our touch senses, the senses coming in from our nervous system, and it is later decided in the brain, and it doesn't come in as a pain signal, as say. Apparently, the brain decides afterwards that it was painful. It's not like a physical. The words aren't coming to me. Do you get what I'm getting at, though? Like the decision to make something painful actually happens after the signal has been received. We don't have pain receptors as such.
It's a process response instead of a reflex response.
Yes, we don't have pain receptors as such. It is a signal that comes in, and then your brain after the fact decides that input that stimulus was painful, which is all kinds of interesting to me, at the very least.
See, this explains a lot of why people find pain enjoyable. Some people,
pain is actually a subjective experience, yes, which is interesting to say the least, because we classically have kind of been the way a lot of people currently understand how we feel pain. You would expect there to be a dedicated pain receptor that is separate from the rest of your touch sense, basically. That it's a signal that comes from the affected area itself, and not something that comes up as a generic signal, which is then later interpreted as pain, which is all kinds of spook. This also means that the emotional state of the person can greatly vary how intensely they feel pain, which...
Yeah, I saw a study that did that, where depressed people just felt pain, like who had like the kind of depression where you feel bad, that they just felt pain more intensely.
It's also linked to how much you're expecting something to hurt. Like if you have people who get like tattoos all the time versus people who don't regularly come into pain in parts there, they don't experience pain at the same intensity. It's much like any other stimulus, in that if you expose yourself more to it, it reduces in severity, which is interesting. Like, because I think like a lot of people think about pain as an objective, like almost like it's its own impulse, in much the same way you have a receptor for a particular input. I don't know what to go for here. Cannabinoid receptors, let's go there, since we already brought up the weed question. Like it's a thing that's a physical, almost like a physiological response, as opposed to a subjective mental thing going on, which is, like, most people don't at least as in my experience, most people don't understand how pain works like that, and I think that's something people should know, right? Like, seems like the kind of thing that's important.
Some people in the chat are going on about misconceptions about immortality, and I feel like I have to dispel those. Look, overpopulation wouldn't be much of a problem, because even if you took away the amount of the largest part of people dying,
Well, isn't the
now?
population just stabilizing already? Like, aren't we?
That is true. But even if it weren't, right? The point at which we would reach the problem of overpopulation would be like 100 years earlier. But at the same time, we would have a lot smarter people with a lot more incentive to open up new living space. And when you get into space, then overpopulation just ceases
not a
to be a
problem.
problem entirely. And also
There's-
a dearth of resources, because there are there's small asteroids that have more rare minerals in them than the entire Earth.
Well, the very concept of a rare earth mineral kind of vanishes once you're in space.
Yeah, it
There's
becomes
so much of this shit.
like
It's all over the place.
I seem to remember there's an asteroid in the asteroid belt which is basically has more gold in it than the Earth has, and it's only like a few kilometers across, but it's mostly gold.
and it's super easy to mine.
Once you're in there, yeah.
Yeah.
When you don't have gravity to be a huge pain in the butt, you don't have like weird things like the deeper you get into a mine, the more air pressure there is in space. So
Yeah, you have, and it's. I mean, the only problem is getting shit into space from Earth. At some
once
point,
you
we
already
need-
have a space station that can
Yeah.
construct spaceships from minerals it receives,
then
you're-
it's no problem.
you're done.
anymore.
right? Like,
You're done. Yeah, then you win, because all
They
of
say
sending shit down is easy. You just put a parachute on it. Done.
getting stuff back up, barring our hopefully graphene-based space elevator. Like if that the country that makes the first like economically feasible space elevator rather than having to use rockets is it's
They
done,
win.
Yeah,
right?
I'm
They
more
win the
of a
game.
space elevator guy, and more of an orbital ring guy. I like that one more.
I mean, it's not really.
don't you just combine
Orbital
the
rings
two,
are
like-
less practical. That's the thing, because they require to make a structure that is literally a bigger diameter than the Earth, which is.
I don't know much about orbital rings. I've heard about them briefly.
I've heard them more
Do they-
about as a science fiction concept.
It's
Yeah.
basically you don't. The thing about orbital rings, I think, is that you don't even need graphene to build them, because they're way closer to the Earth than a space elevator would be. Essentially, in an orbital ring, you'd have like a ring that spans the entire equator of the Earth, though it doesn't have to be the equator; it just have to span the Earth, and you have two tubes in there with accelerated, probably ion particles that go into opposite directions. So it essentially makes the ring static around the Earth, so it's no longer in free fall. And then you put like graphene cables to different locations on the Earth, and they work like space elevators to the orbital ring, and then you can have on the orbital ring. You can have trains going around, and you can have whole cities and habitats on that thing. You can put huge solar farms and whatever. And yeah, basically that can be a very like you could live in London, step out of your house, and be in Sydney 3 hours later. Like that's something that you could do with an orbital ring that you couldn't even do with a space elevator.
No. There's a couple of interesting ways of dealing with economically getting into space, but once we tackle that hurdle, it's like
It's done. We no longer have any problems anymore ever.
we've a lot of people would basically point to that age as the first true instance of post scarcity,
Yes.
right? Like,
Post resource
It-
scarcity, yeah.
yeah, it just doesn't exist anymore once we're up there, right? There is nothing that is rare at this point, right?
And
No
I think that's a great
mineral.
thing. I'm looking forward to that, and like unironically.
I hope we see it. I really like in our lifetimes. I really hope we get to see that.
I just want to fucking go into space. I just want to go into space and float around. That's all I want. I just want commercial space flight to be a thing.
Well, first of all, you need a suit. We can't just put you in space.
Nah, that's fine. I don't mind. I don't mind the zero pressure.
You don't mind the explosive decompression.
No,
okay.
that's fine. I can handle that. If I can handle a Canadian winter, I can handle zero pressure. It's fine. It's pretty much the same thing, you know. It's
the thing we really need, right? And I realize we're now going off the rails of things that are quite likely, is something that I'm going to call an inertial dampener, so that we can build really big things that don't die when they try and bend. Like I'm talking about the kind of spaceships you see in sci-fi, where these things, like the really big spaceships that you see, couldn't turn without. Certainly, steel couldn't take the kind of forces that they're turning with.
And also,
like the momentum around the center would be way too great.
I'm sorry, I'm a layman when it comes. I don't know what the fucking inertial damp. That sounds like something I'd hear in fucking Star Wars or Star Trek.
That's precisely it. Look, listen, if imagine you have acceleration, right? You're in a car, and when you accelerate, you feel yourself getting pushed back. That's your inertia. And this is something that gravely limits the speed at which starships can accelerate. It's really, they could go as fast as physically possible, but they would take a long time to accelerate because humans can only take so much acceleration without being ripped apart.
And even if we remove the human aspect and have it be like drone piloted, there's a stress
on the
point in any material, right?
Yeah. And if you had inertial dampeners, essentially, you could alleviate that with whatever thing. But to be honest, that's probably not something that's ever going to happen because nobody actually...
It requires violating the laws of physics in a way that we don't think is possible.
Yes.
This isn't like the if but maybe of faster than light travel. This is like, no, there is no way.
So, like, the only way of FTL travel that I consider likely in any way is Alcubierre drive, which essentially
which currently exists.
We don't even need faster than light. We just need. I mean, we just use generation ships.
Once we have immortality, the distances between planets.
Yeah, you just be on the ship for like 1,000 years and you just read a book. Bring a bunch of books and you just relax in the chair and wait till you get to the fucking planet like 65 light years away.
That's true. That is. I mean, that's actually very possible, especially if you build like a laser highway across the stars.
A laser highway.
You could. You would essentially build base. You'd essentially build like on asteroids that are between different stars. You would have to go there first, though. Like the first team that goes there couldn't use a laser highway.
So a laser highway just sounds like a synthwave album.
Are we talking about the idea of using photonic sails?
Yeah, basically, and you use lasers that you put on asteroid stations in between to propel that, and you could actually go to I think it's like 90% the speed of light with that.
All right. So the gist of this is that for the layman's, I'll maybe take a moment. So on Earth, the reason light doesn't push you around is because light can't overcome the forces of friction and other things. But in space, light will very slowly accelerate you. If you built basically what looks surprisingly like a wind sail.
Wait, isn't that... Sorry, just that reminds me of how, like, to protect against meteors, we would essentially spray paint one side of an asteroid and just let the light...
Sure.
The sun just kind of push it away.
Because there's nothing to be rubbing against effectively. There's no friction between objects in space because it's on its own thing. You can have a large surface area object, and as long as the object is sufficiently light, or at least compared to the area of the sails, you can, in theory, accelerate yourself to. There is a limit, but basically an unbelievable amount of speed net. It takes a while to obviously get going, but moving at 90% light speed by simply being pushed along by photons, as like I suggested, the laser highway, and that you're being pushed along by lasers, high impulse lasers, is a way of getting around, provided we can't FTL in relativistic speeds in this in one of the most economical fashions of doing it, rather than trying to burn chemical fuels to get around.
Yeah, that's a very good way of doing it. Once you have like a somewhat established space empire.
Once you have space infrastructure, yes, which is.
I actually heard that I'm not sure if this is true once again because what I saw it on Futurism, that they built a functional what's it called? Quantum communicator. What's the thing where you have two particles where one always does the
quantum
opposite?
entanglement.
Quantum entanglement, exactly.
Yes.
Because
Where they got where they sent a bit basically across a kilometer instantaneously.
Because
now, obviously,
the problem with that is like the speed of light is also theorized to be the speed of information, the limit to the speed of information. So if you have two entangled particles, and you observe one of those particles, and it's in one state, you just don't know if the other party is also observing that same particle and it's in the opposite state. So you still couldn't transmit information that way, unless you somehow manage to figure out a way to influence the way that what these particles are doing, because the other particle, no matter where it is in the universe, always does the opposite of that. So, but you never know if what the
difficult to verify because you
Exactly.
can't.
That's why
The
you still need
Heisenberg
light speed
uncertainty
shit.
principle states that you can't know the position and I want to say speed, but I think it's actually electron spin at the same time, which is kind of.
It's because of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. But apparently they somehow found a way around this. And,
You can. It's because they don't note its position. They just notice its spin. It's using its spin that they're trying to transmit information. You can affect its spin with electromagnets.
Oh, you can. Because here's the thing. We say that the light speed is also the limit to the speed of transmitting information, right? But that would only be information that we can do something with. Because quite clearly, through the fact that quantum entanglement exists, it is possible for one particle to do a thing that that immediately has an influence on something else that is at some point in the universe, no matter what the distance is between these two things.
Yes, quantum entanglement relays would be, if they work, incredible.
Yeah, they would be fire.
It would also mean that even just colonization within our solar system becomes a lot easier because you can use more conventional fiber optic systems to get signals across one planet and the moon. But it means that information passing between lunar colony, Mars colony and Earth is real time, which would be pretty good compared to the alternative, which is probably laser-based communication, which would take
communication. You mean?
Yeah, it would take. I forget what light speed is between Earth, Moon, and Mars, but like it's pretty long.
But it would be really terrible because nobody would be able to find a rhythm. I mean, at least with Mars, it would take a long time to communicate, and you wouldn't accidentally cut each other off. But it's essentially, I think the delay is roundabout when we speak here and when it comes about on the stream on YouTube. That's about the delay that you would have in communication from the Earth to the Moon. So it would be super awkward.
It would be interesting. I seem to remember NASA actually has a laser relay to the moon. That's how they communicate with some of the equipment that's still up there. I seem to remember the moon has better broadband than than quite a few domestic internet connections, which is kind of funny.
Really?
Oh, the Neolution is
it's got like 25 meg broadband. It's obviously on quite a heavy delay, but it's got like.
There's a cable that can be produced in space in 0G that we couldn't manufacture on Earth. It's a theorized thing. It's never been actually made, but it would make our current fiber optic cables look like one of those telephones where you have two yogurt cups and you put a string in between them. that would be in relation.
I
to
imagine
this thing.
there's a lot of things that would be significantly easier, if not suddenly possible, to manufacture in space.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of things that are constrained by gravity. So.
The New Illusions just posted this phenomenon where you could use mirrors to bounce back photons of the sun, so they would create a beam. This is actually also, and you could massively accelerate with this. Another thing that you could do with that technique is just.
I've seen. I think it was it Kurzgesagt video did that, where if you put like basically a sphere of mirrors around a star, and then open up
that was
one
Isaac
panel.
Arthur. That's what I was about to say, where you just put a sphere of mirrors around the star and you leave an opening at the bottom, and you essentially transform that star into a massive spaceship, and it pulls the entire solar system with it. So the entire solar system becomes a fucking spaceship.
That's awesome.
And the same thing you can do on a smaller scale with Jupiter if you use fusion candles, because there's so much spaceship. Jupiter's basically made of fucking spaceship fuel.
Yes, I seem to remember Venus. Its atmosphere is quite literally fairly easily convertible into fossil fuels.
The best thing about Venus, though, you could safely use hydrogen as for balloons in that atmosphere, because hydrogen isn't flammable in the Venusian atmosphere, and the Venusian atmosphere is super heavy. Compared
I seem to remember that
atmosphere.
the concept has been kind of abandoned in favor of Mars, but that a Venusian space colony is actually easier.
Yeah, you just have to make it
and
floating.
more lucrative than a Martian one, which is interesting.
Because the thing is, you could just float there.
You'd
in
have
the upper
cloud
reaches of the
cities,
atmosphere.
yeah, because the atmosphere is so dense it can actually support
You
structures.
just have real life Cloud City.
Yeah,
You do.
basically that. You just, and even like
Except
the
it has
current Earth
acid rain.
atmosphere that we have. Here
Well, that's the
on
thing
Earth,
is you don't actually
you
have to
float.
dive into the potentially perilous atmosphere on Jupiter. Venus.
Venus. Am I really this
it's-
quiet?
And you could have one black guy.
You could have
The one black guy who runs the whole show, and he's really good at cards or something. We're not racist, guys.
Bold
we swear.
black leader guy.
We have the one black guy. It's okay.
So are you telling me that Venus becomes space Africa? Is that
Yes, because we implemented the one black guy. It is now Space Africa.
I actually wrote a short story about the Venus colony that I don't like particularly, but it's a very good character thing, and but like Venus is space India there, combined with space Iberia.
I don't know if there's any more research into this, but there's also something. Is it called quantum locking? The gist of it is that you can, via the interaction with a superconductor and a magnet, you can. So in a conventional magnetic system, the weight of the object being suspended is pushes on the magnet on the bottom, right? But there is apparently some way of separating the basically the weight force of the object being suspended and the magnet doing the suspending.
Really?
Yeah. Or at least at some point, heard this was a thing. It may have since been proven that it wouldn't work, but some way of breaking the link between the object being suspended by this very particular magnetic configuration, and basically it would allow things like, again, in the concept of spaceships, it would mean that the weight of the spaceship wouldn't matter. It could be docked into a thing that would support it, which is, again, incredibly helpful if it works.
I really have to go piss for a moment.
I'm going to have to go look and see if it's actually still a thing. But I was super excited for that, if that's ever a thing.
Man, you guys were just talking way over my head.
I don't know, man.
I find all this stuff very interesting, but
it does require kind of a lifetime, maybe not a lifetime, or
a lot of research. Yeah,
requires basically having done lots of reading in the years up to this point.
Yeah, I like watching people like Isaac Arthur and Kurzgesagt, but I do sometimes struggle with the details. it's all very interesting, and I love learning about it, but I couldn't hold a conversation about it. History is more my thing.
Posting this link because it discusses a little bit of the actual mechanism by which the weight of the object is not felt by the object suspending it, which is crazy.
How quantum levitation works. Yeah, I'll have to read this.
It's a bit further down. Where is it? Because there's existing technologies like maglevs, which aren't an example of this. We just use magnets. And it specifically requires the use of a superconductor, which is the reason a lot of quantum stuff, or a lot of quantum technologies can't work at the moment, is that we don't have, or at least work practically, is that we don't have superconductors that work at room temperatures. You have to cool them down a lot before they function.
I'm very happy with the fact that nobody posted trap porn while I was gone.
Oh boy. No, I did post
that-
this thing on how this maybe works. Like I say, there's...
Why is that something that happens, Burger?
Not here, but in other places it does.
mods are gone post porn. Yeah, that's the thing, definitely.
I mean, I am a trap lover myself, so...
All that being said, I do think we need to wrap it up. We're coming up on the 2.5 hour mark. This has been phenomenal. Quite honestly, I've greatly enjoyed it.
You want more of these.
Yes. I mean, they happen once a month, but holy shit, this was good.
Talking about history and technology and a little bit of philosophy and ethics, and
The
yeah,
past,
it's
the
good.
present, the future, and the bionicles.
What is with the I know that's a meme on your fucking Discord, but how did that
I don't
start?
understand the bionicles either. Don't sweat it.
I just don't question it, I guess.
It just happened. In some live stream, they just started posting bionicle memes, and then it became a thing. I have a channel for it too.
It's now a part of your legacy, Burger. It's part of you now.
Yeah, it's a part of me now.
You didn't ask for it, but you know.
Yeah, all that being said, I say goodbye, chat. Thank you very much for watching this whole thing, which was more for patrons than for you guys, but I hope you guys enjoyed it as well.
We got a whole 38 viewers of us just talking about stuff.
That's
There was
pretty
like 51 earlier.
39 viewers. Oh boy.
So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I like you very much wherever you are in the world. And see you around, cunts.